4月22号是世界地球日，因此呢，在台北的华山文创园区正举办一场叫“城市游牧”的影展，特别注重的是跟环境变迁有关的议题。在这场影展里头，有一部纪录片，我们今天特别推荐给大家，叫《大树悲歌》。这部纪录片呢，入围了今年奥斯卡最佳纪录片奖，同时也获得了日舞影展的最佳纪录片。美国的《纽约时报》评论它是成就非凡的纪录片，无畏惧的探索被这个世界简化成英雄或是恶棍的复杂的环境问题。它主要报道的是有一群人对于世界不断的被破坏的环境感到绝望，决定采取一种激烈的方式，他们甚至被视为恐怖分子。这部影片在报道的，在探讨的问题是，到底谁才是真正的恐怖分子
？In Vail, Colorado, the nation's busiest ski resort was hit today by a fire. Arson is suspected.
You may have heard of the Earth Liberation Front. The Attorney General himself says it's a domestic terrorist organization. The FBI says it is one of the most dangerous groups in the country.
The ELF has claimed responsibility for more than 24 major acts of eco-terrorism since 1996.
Fire bombings include attacks on lumber mills, wild horse corrals, and 2 meatpacking plants.
So far, not one of the cases has ever been solved, and authorities acknowledge they know next to nothing about the membership or the leadership of the organization.
人类在这个美丽的星球上不断的大肆破坏、砍伐、杀戮。1992年在英国成立，1994年扩散到全欧洲以及北美的地球解放阵线，就是企图透过破坏企业的工厂，阻止他们继续危害地球生态环境的组织。目前为止，从未造成任何人员伤亡。
Well, Warner Creek's about 50 miles east of Eugene, and it's probably one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. And in 1995, the Forest Service decided to open it up for logging. People went up there and created a blockade on a federal logging road to try to prevent, the logging of this place. So we created a documentary called Pickaxe, which is the story of Warner Creek.
There's more vehicles on the way, over. 1 grader followed by 1 Dudley.
We don't think you guys have the right to take a protected forest teeming with life, bid it and log it.
For a long time, people were fighting the Forest Service through like holding signs, letter writing, sort of a hippie-type approach to protest. But there was this new kind of protest that was becoming popular. People would call it sabotage or monkey wrenching. They would glue locks, they'd pull up survey stakes, they would maybe put sugar and gas tanks of bulldozers. At Warner Creek, just a simple little blockade turned into an all-out assault on the only way in to that forest. Protesters dug a series of trenches to keep logging trucks from getting to the forest. And then they built the wall. It looked like an old fort from the Wild Wild West, and it had a drawbridge, and it was really a cool blockade. We're drawing a line in the sand, and you can't come in here and destroy this place. And they stayed up there for about a year.
As a federal law enforcement officer, it's my duty to inform you that you're in violation.
You have 5 minutes to get out of here, and you have actually less than 5 minutes.
Early one morning, the Forest Service came up and arrested the protesters and knocked down the wall. That created a lot of bitterness toward the Forest Service.
多数美国人相信林务署的目的在于保护森林，实际上林务署提供树木给伐木公司，好让他们得以砍伐这些树龄高达750年甚至1000年巨大无比的原始树林。有些环保人士因此认为多说无益，因此开始了激烈的抗争手段。
This investigation was the largest domestic terrorism case in the history of the United States. And the very first ELF action that occurred in the United States occurred at 2 ranger stations in the District of Orion. Mainstream legitimate environmental activists were absolutely shocked and disgusted with the fire. And they saw the burning of the Oak Ridge Ranger Station as a public relations disaster.
Jake Ferguson and members of the fledgling ELF set their sights on new targets. They came across an Associated Press article about the rounding up of wild horses from government land. The horses were being sent to slaughterhouses, including the Caval West plant in nearby Redmond, Oregon. There were so many horses being processed at the plant that horse blood would sometimes overwhelm the town's water treatment facility and shut it down. And for 10 years, people from the area had tried and failed to stop the plant. But on July 21st, 1997, Jake Ferguson and 3 others slipped into the facility in the middle of the night and burned it to the ground. The company was never able to rebuild, and the arson became a model for the group. In one night, they had accomplished what years of letter writing and picketing had never been able to do.
但是抗争总是要付出代价的。
If the judge rules that Daniel's fires were terrorism, Daniel could be sent to a new, ultra-restrictive prison that was set up after 9/11 to house terrorists. In the media and in the courtroom, the question is debated.
Eco-terrorism, terrorist acts by radical groups. Eco-terrorists.
Eco-terrorism.
Environmental terrorists.
When you got big timber companies coming into the Northwest, clear-cutting old-growth forest, big oil companies with their big oil spills that cost billions and billions and billions of dollars. You don't see the FBI raiding these executives' homes or anything like that. They aren't being threatened with life in prison. All they really do is just pay a fine and move on to the next quarter.
The old adage that, one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter, it's true. If you agree with their motives, wow, they're a hero. They're not a terrorist at all. If you disagree with their motives, then they're a terrorist.
这世界从来不是非黑即白，但是根据文明世界的法律，纵火毁人财物总是要还的。被逮捕的地球解放阵线成员被法官认定是恐怖分子，有的虽然被释放，有的得在严密监控的牢狱里度过漫长的刑期。但是关于恐怖分子的争议，以及环绕着对于正义的手段与目的的辩证，永远不会停止。